So how did the Barings intervene in the early U.S. economy? Well, it turns out that the Barings are right in the middle of all of the important financial exchanges that the U.S. government makes, and in fact many of the state governments as well, that they make in the early 19th century. Take, for instance, in 1804, when Thomas Jefferson buys the Louisiana Territory from France. The U.S. has to borrow the money, and so the loan has to be floated on European financial markets. It's the Barings that underwrite the loan. Now, of course, they make money from selling the bonds, but they're also able to create a global supply chain for cotton that flows out of New Orleans towards the English cotton merchants in whom the Barings have also invested in Liverpool and Manchester. Then later, in the course of the War of 1812, which is fought between Britain and the U.S., both parties pull away from the negotiating table at a certain point in 1814. Both parties owe money to the Baring brothers. Barings push them back to the table to actually work out a peace and an end to what is ultimately a pointless war. The Barings also support and work closely with the Second Bank of the United States, an important financial institution that we'll talk more about later. And then finally, they also help a number of U.S. States to develop innovative new financial securities in the 1820s and 1830s. Ultimately, those new products, those new financial instruments explode and bring the entire world into financial crisis, but not before European investors have transferred millions of dollars into the U.S., helping to build up the new U.S. economy. So if we ask the partners of the Barings firm in the early 19th century what their job was, they might say that most important is to find financial products, to find opportunities for investment that will give a good return and yet be reliable and safe for the people who entrust their money to the Barings. But what they might also say, and what they certainly did, was to help governments to create new markets and to support new kinds of economic activities within those markets. And so we see some of the essential contradictions between what we think and what we hear today capitalism is all about and how it actually developed. Governments, with the help of financial capital, made markets. Governments, with the help of financial capital, made it possible for entrepreneurs to act in an entrepreneurial way in those new markets that had been created. Again and again, we see the Barings and others doing that. And there are some other contradictions here as well, right? The Barings are not American, and yet they help to create American capitalism. They don't actually make things. They're more like Goldman Sachs than they are like Steve Jobs and Apple. And yet they play this essential role in the development of an economy that will soon be the biggest industrial economy in the world, making the most stuff that is sold all around the world. Now, you might be wondering what ends up happening to the Barings. Well, they continue for over 2 centuries, in fact, to be one of the most important financial institutions in the British economy. They continue, that is, until early 1995, when one trader, a guy named Nicholas Leeson, starts on his own accord to trade secretly on the Barings account from his office in Hong Kong, speculating on the future direction of the Japanese stock market. His unwise trades soon put the entire capital of the Barings and their entire 225-year history at risk, and the firm collapses, all because of 3 months of activity, 3 months of bad trades. And that's also important to think about, because the financial economy can do amazing things, but it can also do completely irrational things, and it can collapse very quickly. And we see that contradiction in the Barings history as well.